Welcome to B.I.V.I.P. I am the notorious B.I.V., and you are my beautiful VIPs for the next few minutes here while we discuss the friggin' halftime show of the Super Bowl. So, by the way, this is my new show, the B.I.V.I.P. show. Yeah, you like that? It's the same show, but with an all new name, baby. So I've never been like a big NFL fan personally. I know, like back when I was a little kid, when I was like 9 or 10 in elementary school, like NFL was huge in my elementary school, and kids would like walk around in those NFL jackets. You know, all the rich kids like would have their NFL jackets, and like those NFL pencils were everywhere. You know, like people were trading NFL pencils, and like you'd find them, here and there every now and then, and yeah, so it was like it was definitely like a thing when I was a kid, and my best friend at the time, he loved the Green Bay Packers because his dad loved the Green Bay Packers, right? I mean that's kind of how these things go, right? So so I was a Pittsburgh Steelers fan back then because I liked the black and yellow color scheme. I thought that was pretty cool. And I also liked the Rams just because like they had a similar color scheme, like blue and gold. So so my friend and I think 1 or 2 years there, I went up to his place for like a little Super Bowl party. You know, just the two of us in his room. He was an only child, so like he had his own TV and everything. And his mom would like bring us snacks and things, and it was, and so that's like. And so then like growing up, I wasn't an NFL fan after that. I followed NBA basketball for a while. That was kind of my sport. But so I'm not really like a Super Bowl fan, right? I don't have Super Bowl parties. I don't watch the big game generally, but I do like a good halftime show, right? So this year, I haven't even been following this thing really, right? So I didn't even know who was on. So last night I'm like, oh hey, let's pull up YouTube and see if I can find the halftime show. And I turn it on, and it's like Dr. Dre, right? Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, 50 Cent, or Fatty Cent, as the case may be. My friend Tony's like, I'm calling him a $1.50 now. Not 50. He's not 50 Cent anymore. He's a $1.50. And Mary J. Blige and Kendrick Lamar, right? So I start watching it. So like I'm a fan, right? I've always loved gangster rap. I don't know why. It just I like the attitude. I like the machismo, kind of thing. I just like the theater of it all, kind of. And so so I start watching this thing, and it just got like, for me it got kind of more and more depressing, actually, right? Like I'm watching, like, Dr. Dre hasn't made a song, and I mean, well, first of all, they're singing like their old songs, right, from like 20 years ago. I mean, these songs are like 20 years old. They're singing all their old songs and whatever, and I'm like, okay. And I mean, and like I said, Dr. Dre hasn't even made new music since 20 years ago, right? I mean, that was like the last time we heard him was 20 years ago, and now he's like back 20 years later playing the same songs, right? And I'm just like, there was just something about it that was like I don't know, man, like like they're just like reliving their glory days. It was all about Dre, right? It was like Dr. Dre, and everyone's like, Kendrick Lamar and his little part was like, talking about Dre and NWA and whatever and stuff, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that was like, yeah, NWA was like 1980, whatever, right? And and they're just like, they're all like, and they're all praising Dre, and they're doing like all the like, oh, everybody Mother effers forgot about Dre and all this stuff, right? And they're like, you know what I mean, doing that stuff. And they were doing that 20 years ago, right? They were all like, oh, everyone's forgotten about Dre, but he's still here and he's still, whatever. That was they were doing that 20 years ago, and now they're doing it again. And I'm just like, well, yeah, like we did forget about Dre because like he hasn't made any music since 20 years ago, right? So it was just really weird to see, to see Dre and Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg hasn't really done anything either for the last 20 years, right? I know, like Eminem's still putting out music every now and then. I don't know about Mary J. Blige. Like, I'm not a huge Mary J. Blige fan. And then Kendrick Lamar, I was just like, I could barely understand what he was saying sometimes, or not what he was saying, but he was just like the first part of his set, he's just like sitting there like, yeah, all right, yeah, right, and I'm just like, okay, like I could do that, right? Like, are you gonna like spit some lines, and then like eventually he spit a few bars, right? But I was like, I don't know, I've never been a big Kendrick Lamar fan either, because it's like he was kind of like, I don't know, man. He came, when he was like all popular, I heard about him, right? And it's like, oh, Kendrick Lamar and whatever, and I'm like, okay, well, how come I've never heard any of his music like on the radio, right? And this is gonna date me, right? But I'm always like, look, if like a good alternative song or a good rap song or a good like metal song or whatever, like my view is like the cream will rise to the top, right? So if there's like any good like alternative type, genres, any good alternative music that comes out of these genres, then it'll like make it to the radio eventually, right? And that's always been kind of my view. So yeah, I know it dates me, but Kendrick Lamar, I'm just like, who's this guy, right? And so I looked him up on YouTube a couple times, and back then, and was like, I listened to a couple of his songs, and I was like, yeah, okay, he's all right. I mean, he's a rapper, right? Like, he just didn't really impress me all that much. And so it was weird seeing him here with these guys, because I don't know that he was ever part of Dre's crew, right? I mean, it didn't seem like it. But maybe, but it's cool that Dre was maybe giving him some exposure here, inviting him onto the show. So that was kind of cool with Dre, I guess. But yeah, Kendrick Lamar, it's the same with Skrillex, right? Like, Kendrick Lamar is like Skrillex to me. Like everyone's like, oh, dubstep's so awesome, and Skrillex is like the coolest or whatever. And I'm like, well, how come I've never heard his music? Like, where are people listening to these songs? You know what I mean? And like they don't pop up on my Pandora. And again, I'm dating myself because yes, I listen to Pandora. I don't listen to Spotify or whatever's cool these days. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm just watching like these old, these aging rap stars like reliving their glory days and stuff, and I'm just like, and then 50 Cent comes on and he's like Fatty Cent, right? Like I didn't even know who that was at first. I'm like, who's this guy like hanging from the ceiling or whatever? And then I like heard the beat kick in, and I was like, oh, that's 50 Cent. Like, what? And he's like, and then he comes down, and he's like dancing around. I'm like, whoa, Fitty's put on a little weight. And the funny thing too is like the last time I remember seeing 50 Cent was like, he was like doing some movie where he had cancer or something, and he'd like lost a ton of weight and just looked like all emaciated and thin, And so that was like the last time I remember seeing like, any pictures of 50 Cent, right? So then to see him here, it's like, it was just like a huge contrast. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Okay. So yeah, and then Eminem came and did, one of his old songs and stuff, and I'm just like, it just, it seemed weird to me because like why didn't we have like why didn't they have Dre on like 20 years ago, right? Like that's when he was big. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's kind of odd to me. So to have him on now it just seemed really weird to me. It's just odd and just kind of sad, like to see them, you know, performing these old songs and stuff. So, you know, and I still listen to them. Like I said, like Dre and Snoop pop up on my Pandora every now and then, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, all right, you know, like cool. And I'll listen to those jams. I'll listen to Eminem or whatever. But but yeah, and I don't love rap anymore. Really, it's not really my thing. I mean, just like the modern rap. Like I said, I really liked gangster rap back in the day, and that was fun, you know. Um, but yeah, I just wonder, like you know, they weren't. Well, and I know why. I know why they had Dre on, right? Because it's like, look, just considering the political climate and everything, right? You know, like what and it's funny to say this, but like, you know, Dre, you know, from NWA is like the safe bet right now, right? He's like the safe artist to have on because, you know, because all the Black Lives Matter and taking a knee and Colin Kaepernick and all that stuff, right? It's like, who can we have on, you know, oh, how about a bunch of, you know, black rappers, right? Like, and Eminem, right? Like it makes sense, right? Like no one's gonna complain about that. You know what I mean? If they had like a white artist on, you know, they would have gotten complaints about it, right? So so funny that like I mean back 20 years ago when Dre was big, I don't think the NFL would have touched him, right? But now, right now it's like with Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, it's like, oh yeah, let's have Dre and Snoop on, like, right? So kind of funny. Anyway, I just you know I just wish they would have more contemporary. They ought to have more contemporary artists, right? Like, I mean, they had Katy Perry a few years ago. Like, she was pretty popular back then, so that worked. Um, you had, I remember, like right after the Super Bowl controversy, right, with Janet Jackson, they were just like super safe for a while, and they had like, I think they had Paul McCartney. They had Paul McCartney, and then like the Rolling Stones the next year, and then I think they had like Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and like just like like these old rock acts. Um, but yeah, I just wonder. I just think like why do they? They just seem to have all these like old things on, and maybe that's on purpose, maybe not. I don't know. But like, where's like Dua Lipa, for example, right? I think she'd be an amazing halftime performer. Um, who else? Ariana Grande, maybe, right? I mean, both of them are still even they are like, you know, a couple 3 years old now. I mean, they're, you know, but I mean, like, you know, there are a lot of popular acts out there right now that I think, you know, could use the exposure or whatever. Anyway, what else? Those are my thoughts on uh, Super Bowl halftime show 2022, and I hope you enjoyed that. And if you did, please like, subscribe, leave a comment on the video. You know, let me know what your favorite Super Bowl halftime shows were, or maybe artists that you'd like to see on the Super Bowl halftime show. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.